Chapter 25. Sci-Fi Prep Academy. Mark and Morris sat cross-legged on the floor of Morris's multiverse, surrounded by half-empty coffee mugs, stacks of sci-fi comics, and an open notebook that was rapidly filling with scribbled plans, ridiculous theories, and an alarming number of worst-case scenarios. This wasn't just strategizing. This was everything they had ever dreamed of. And now, it was real. A lifetime of sci-fi finally useful. "We've been training for this moment our entire lives," Morris announced, tapping his pen against his chin like he was about to unleash classified information. Mark raised an eyebrow. "Watching every sci-fi movie ever made does not count as tactical training." "You say that, but has it failed us yet?" Mark opened his mouth, then promptly closed it. Morris grinned, victorious. The necessary precautions, they outlined every possible failure. Gizmo malfunctions. What if the anti-gravity device shorted out while they were mid-air? What if the cloaking device failed in a critical moment? Portal disasters. What if the teleportation device threw them into a toxic atmosphere? What if the spaceship had security defenses they weren't ready for? Alien encounters. If the silver aliens saw them, would they be friendly, or would they assume humans were an invasive species? Everything had to be considered. Because if Hollywood had taught them anything, it was that the minute people underestimated alien tech, things exploded. Escape routes and backup plans. "We need fallback options," Mark insisted, flipping through his notebook, trying to create some semblance of order in this madness. "Agreed," Morris said, dramatically clicking his pen. Teleportation safety protocol. Always preview the destination. If it looks deadly, abort immediately. Invisibility escape plan. If caught, turn invisible and run like hell. Interstellar diplomacy rules. Don't speak unless spoken to. Avoid sudden movements. Do not taunt the aliens. The code words. If things go south, use the phrase Comic-Con is cancelled. That meant, get out now. Mark scribbled furiously, his mind whirling with equal parts excitement and terror. "This is either going to be the most incredible thing we've ever done," he muttered, "or we're going to regret it for the rest of our lives." Morris grinned wide. "Why not both?" The final piece. Mia's arrival. Mark sat back, rubbing his temples. "Mia's coming in 2 days." Morris leaned forward, eyes practically glowing with anticipation. "And you're actually introducing me to her?" Mark nodded. "If we're doing this, you need to meet her. She's part of this now." Morris grinned like a mad scientist. "Kid, this is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I mean, us. And that was terrifying." The edge of permission. Morris looked down at the floor, the creaky tiles between them somehow absorbing the gravity of the moment. Gone was the man who joked about alien autopsies and interstellar librarians. This was Uncle Morris, guardian, brother, friend, and right now he looked like someone who'd been handed a live grenade labeled Mark's life. "You have no idea how hard it is to look at you and not see Joe's face," he said quietly. "He trusted me to teach you comics, maybe bad puns, not intergalactic exploration." Mark's gaze didn't waver. "Dad gave me structure. You gave me imagination. This needs both. That's why I need you, not as a babysitter, as my partner." Morris let out a breath that felt like it had been compressed in his chest for days. Then, with a gruff motion, he reached over, pulled Mark into a one-armed hug and said, "If I die helping you do this, I'm coming back to haunt you by rearranging your entire comic collection by release date instead of series order." Mark grinned. "You're the best ghost ever." The pact was silent, but it was sealed. Now came preparation, danger, discovery. Because one thing was certain. They weren't just cracking open a mystery. They were cracking open the universe. "In case we don't come back." Mark hit stop on the voice recorder, his thumb trembling slightly as the final click echoed through the dim comic shop. Across from him, Morris stood still, eyes fixed on the desk, where the handwritten note sat beneath the glowing multiverse staff-only sign. "If you're reading this," the letter began, then we didn't make it back. It wasn't dramatic. Not really. It was honest. Clear. A time capsule of courage, curiosity, and calculated risk, wrapped in spiral notebook paper and ink-stained conviction. Tom, who normally couldn't be trusted with stocking shelf order, was now the last safeguard of the truth. "Only give it to my brother Joe if we vanish," Morris had instructed him in the envelope. The prep run. After Morris phoned Mark's dad and smoothly reassured him that everything was fine, just hanging out, bit of uncle-nephew bonding, and a sci-fi marathon in the works, they were cleared for launch. Morris didn't want to lie to Joe, so he decided to sugarcoat the truth. Their next stop. The most alien-resistant place on Earth. The local hardware store. They moved like agents on a mission, weaving through aisles with military precision. Flashlights, not just for visibility, also great for dramatic cinematic reveals. Batteries and a couple of duffel bags. Rope, a crowbar, goggles, rubber gloves. "Just in case the aliens lock us in their tool shed," Morris quipped. Protein bars, water, candy. For emergencies and diplomacy. Because nothing softens a first contact like butterscotch. Mark wasn't sure if Morris was entirely kidding. He hoped not. Prepared. Sort of back at the store, their gear laid out, their portal destination identified, and their goodbye sealed in ink and audio, there was nothing left to do but wait. Mark glanced at the teleportation glyph, still faintly pulsing on the device, the one that led inside the ship. He felt the weight of it. Not fear, not really, but the sharp awareness that the story they were stepping into might be bigger than either of them imagined. And still he smiled. Because if they didn't come back, they'd go down like heroes in their own epic stories. Loaded with gear and brimming with nervous energy, the duo headed out, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead. While uncertainty loomed over them, they couldn't help but feel a sense of adventure. This was the moment they'd both dreamed of. The chance to step into the unknown and confront a mystery that was straight out of the stories they loved so much. Whatever happened next, they were in it together. After their trip to the hardware store, Morris and Mark arrived at Mark's house, greeted by the warm, inviting aroma of lasagna from the kitchen. Jasmine, upon learning that Morris would be staying for dinner, had sprung into action, preparing one of her signature dishes. The family gathered around the dining table, sharing laughs and playful stories in the cozy atmosphere. Mark, trying his best to appear relaxed, occasionally exchanged knowing glances with Morris, their shared secret hanging silently in the air. The mood took a sudden turn when Joe, mid-bite, asked Mark about the airplane. "By the way, Mark, where is that plane? I noticed it wasn't in the garage earlier." Mark and Morris froze for a split second, their eyes darting toward each other before Mark quickly recovered. "Oh, I loaned it to a friend for a couple of days," he replied casually, forcing a smile. His heart raced as he uttered the lie, a pang of guilt tugging at him. He hated deceiving his father, but knew he couldn't possibly explain how the airplane had ended up in the back storage room of a comic book shop. Joe nodded, satisfied with the answer, and the conversation resumed its lively tone. Mark exhaled in relief as the family continued sharing jokes and stories, the tension easing. As planned, Morris brought up the idea of taking Mark for the weekend. "Joe, I was thinking, since school's starting up again soon, how about I spend some time with Mark? We could go fishing, just the two of us. A little uncle-nephew bonding." Joe glanced at Jasmine, who shrugged with a knowing smile. Fishing wasn't exactly their favorite activity, but they saw no harm in letting Morris and Mark go. "Sure," Joe said. "Just bring him back in one piece." Mark rushed upstairs after dinner to pack a small bag for the weekend. He kept his essentials light, his focus entirely on the mission ahead. Coming back downstairs, he hugged each family member tightly, lingering just a little longer with each embrace. Deep down, he knew this wasn't just any fishing trip. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. With the car already packed from their earlier trip to the hardware store, Morris and Mark said their goodbyes and headed straight to Morris's downtown apartment. As they drove through the quiet streets, the excitement in the car was palpable. They were finally on their way to the next chapter of their adventure, ready to face whatever mysteries lay ahead. Once inside Morris's apartment, the energy in the air was palpable. It was the moment they had been preparing for, and both Mark and Morris felt the gravity of what they were about to do. The living room, cluttered with stacks of comics and collectibles, now served as their command center. They sat at the table, running through their plan one last time, ironing out every contingency. For every possibility, being spotted by aliens, losing their way, or the portal malfunctioning, they had a response, or so they thought. Their excitement bubbled just beneath the surface, tempered only by the awareness of the risks they were taking. Next, they moved to revising their equipment, checking every detail with military precision. Flashlights, extra batteries, rope, snacks, and the alien gizmos were laid out like treasures waiting to be wielded. Mark patiently demonstrated how to use the portal device, explaining the quirks he had noticed during his earlier trips. Morris listened intently, his hands trembling ever so slightly as he grasped the reality of what they were about to face. When the moment finally arrived, Mark activated the portal gizmo. The air in the apartment shimmered as the strange, swirling vortex opened in the center of the room. Its colors pulsed with otherworldly energy, casting an eerie glow across the walls. Morris stared at it, his breath caught in his throat. This was no sci-fi movie. This was real. Mark stood just a breath away from the portal's edge, duffel bag clutched tightly in both hands. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, silent and pulsing with faint blue light. He glanced at Morris beside him, goggles tilted on his forehead, jaw tight, hands steady despite the storm of tension beneath. Together, they edged forward, sliding the duffel bag slowly through the portal. 1 inch, 2, 5. And then it vanished. The portal collapsed. There was no sound, no warning, just an instantaneous silent implosion of energy that vanished into nothing. Mark stumbled backward with a gasp, the bag nearly slipping from his hands. Morris froze mid-step, heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear anything else. "Mark, you okay?" Mark checked his body in a panic. Arms, legs, still there. No numbness, no cuts. They were both intact. But the duffel bag was not. Aftermath. Morris crouched, slowly unzipping the bag like it might bite. The crowbar was severed, smooth, clean, surgically sliced like it had gone through a laser grid. Part of the rope was gone. The bag itself had a gaping hole at the front. He swallowed. We were 5 inches from losing a hand, or a foot, or more. Mark said nothing, just stared at the bag in disbelief, the adrenaline draining from his face. "We don't even know what kind of energy that was," Morris murmured. "How does a portal close that fast? What triggers it?" Mark didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was somewhere else entirely, on the pieces of rope and crowbar now lying loose in the alien ship. They had left a trace. They had lost the element of surprise. Silence in the multiverse. They sat on the floor of the comic store, backs against the counter, surrounded by gear that suddenly felt more like dead weight than tools. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy, filled with calculations and quiet fear. "We almost died," Morris said, finally breaking the stillness. His voice was quiet, almost guilty. "Yeah," Mark replied, equally low. "We almost died, stupidly." Morris exhaled. That hurt more than he expected. And then, as if things weren't grim enough, the gizmo pulsed faintly, its interface flickering, then dimming. Its power supply ran out. No bars, no indicators, no warnings, just fading light. And suddenly, every tool in their alien arsenal felt like a landmine waiting to fail. Recalibration. Mark ran a hand through his hair. If the anti-gravity gizmo cuts out midair, that's it. We're done. Same for the cloaking device, Morris added bitterly. Imagine suddenly reappearing during a stealth mission. Boom. 2 humans playing dress-up on a spaceship. Neither of them had the energy to argue or freak out anymore. The disappointment sat too deep in their bones. This wasn't just a failed mission. It was a reminder that they were out of their depth. Mark stared at the gizmo, expression blank. And then, he blinked. "Mia?" Morris looked up. "The gray? She's smart. She's not from the same species as the aliens that made these, but she's still an alien. If anyone can help us figure out how these are charged, it's her." Morris was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Yeah, she's our best shot. But we don't know her, Mark. And we don't know what she wants from you." Mark exhaled, jaw clenched. "We don't have a choice. A plan with a leash." They agreed. They would bring Mia in, but keep information limited. No full disclosures, no full trust. 50%, Morris said, drawing an imaginary line in the air with his finger. "She gets the vague version until she earns trust." 50% trust, Mark echoed. "Tops." Escape to normalcy. That night, they hit the local movie theater, the only place where UFOs still stayed on screen and snacks were overpriced. They didn't talk about collapsing portals or malfunctioning tech. They didn't discuss stealth or diplomacy or contingency plans. They just sat side by side, sharing popcorn and watching aliens invade Earth the old-fashioned way. For a few hours, they weren't interstellar explorers. They were just two nerds, dodging adulthood, sitting in the dark. And in the morning, when Mia returned, everything would start again. Chapter 26. Mia and the Pizza Pact. Mark and Morris crouched behind the hedge at the corner of Cedar Drive, like a pair of full-grown raccoons on a stakeout. Morris peeked through the branches. "Are we seriously hiding like this?" Mark hushed him. "Do you want Joe to see us and start asking why we're in camo gear with a duffel bag full of alien tech?" "I'm just saying, next time we do this, I'm bringing snacks." Just then, Mia appeared, walking down the sidewalk like she was born to navigate suburbia. Her backpack was slung across one shoulder, her hair neat, her walk graceful and easy. She was about to pass the bushes when, "Mia!" Mark called, stepping out of the greenery like a B-list spy trying to be cool. Mia stopped mid-stride, raising one eyebrow. "You emerged from a shrub. Is this the standard greeting among your people?" Morris stumbled out behind him, sticks in his hair. "Hi, I'm Morris. I'm the uncle. Also possibly the adult here. Jury's still out." Mia smiled, one of those precise expressions clearly practiced from observation, and gave Morris a once-over. "Your hair ecosystem could support a small rodent. Fascinating." Mark snorted. "That's Mia. Or rather, the biosuit of Mia. The actual alien, her, is Nimba. She's piloting from the inside." Morris blinked. "Piloting? Like a mech?" "Sort of," said Mia. "Think of it as advanced cosplay, but with actual alien organs." "Fascinating. It looks so real," Morris said. En route in the Space Pinto, they crammed into Morris's creaky Ford Pinto. The door required a prayer and a shoulder slam to shut, and every bump in the road added to the symphony of mystery rattles coming from under the hood. As they drove, Mia examined everything with childlike fascination. Fuzzy dice, glove compartment, cup holder. "Is this your transport's energy stabilization panel?" she asked, tapping the broken AC dial. "Nope," Morris replied. "That controls whether your kneecaps freeze or melt during a highway drive." "I see. Cruel but efficient." Halfway to the store, Mia leaned toward Mark. "When humans bond emotionally, do they always ride around in malfunctioning combustion engines while sitting in silence and regretting life choices?" "That's oddly specific," Mark replied. Pizza. The Universal Treaty offering once back at the comic shop, Mia stood in the center of the store, spinning slowly. "There are so many illustrated records here. Why do most of your heroes wear underpants on the outside?" "Cultural mystery," Morris said. "Scholars still debate it." Then Mia clapped once, brightly. "Mark, order pizza." He blinked. What?" "I've observed your species through thousands of digital feeds. I've concluded that when humans form bonds, they seal it with processed carbohydrate discs covered in coagulated dairy and a chemical called pepperoni." "Okay. Weirdly accurate. And," she added, smiling genuinely now, "I want to be friends. I've never had one before, not a human one." Mark looked at Morris, who shrugged. "Pizza sounds like a plan. Also, If this alien invasion ends in a pizza party, I want that on my tombstone. After the grease settled, they sat in the back of the comic shop on camping stools, surrounded by pizza boxes and a half-dozen unopened sodas. Mia ate daintily, as if unfamiliar with chewing. Fascinating texture, slightly rubbery, delightfully inefficient. Then Morris leaned in, wiping his hands. "All right, Mia, time to shift gears. We'd like to know what exactly brought you here. Your mission, your first contact, the works." Mia blinked, considering. Then she straightened, folded her napkin, and began. Mia's truth. I arrived 4 Earth years ago. Dropped onto a frozen plain in what you call Saskatchewan. For 3 hours I assumed the planet was entirely made of snow. I panicked. I almost filed a planetary relocation request. Mark snorted soda through his nose. Mia continued, unbothered. My first encounter with humans came in the form of a group of 10-year-olds on bicycles. They offered me gum, then proceeded to argue over whether I was a cosplay girl from Fortnite. Was that a compliment? Morris asked. Unclear. My assignment was standard. Observe, blend, report. But I didn't want to just watch. I wanted to understand, feel. That meant ditching official channels, faking records, going rogue. She paused, meeting their eyes. That's why I live alone. That's why no one knows I've made contact. I didn't expect to meet someone like Mark. Someone like? Morris asked. Mia smiled. Curious, brave, a little reckless, but sincere. Most humans put up so many fronts. He showed me something real. Mark looked down at his hands, pretending not to be moved. The silence that followed was soft and full. Not awkward, not heavy, just honest. They weren't just a boy, his eccentric uncle, and a telepathic extraterrestrial anymore. They were something else, something together. Mia leaned back in the folding chair, finishing the last bite of her 4th slice of pizza, pepperoni with extra olives, and dabbed at the corners of her mouth with exaggerated politeness. Then she looked at Mark, eyes sharp and thoughtful. All right, she said. Full disclosure, 47%. Let's call that a compromise. Where do you live? Mia raised a brow. Currently, I reside in what your population classifies as a vacant 2-bedroom rental property 4 blocks from a 7-Eleven. I hacked into the leasing company's server and redirected the rent payment to a ghost account. The neighbors think I'm the daughter of a traveling botanist who left me behind to finish school. How did you learn to hack into human computer networks? Asked Mark. That is child play. I figured out in 2 hours when I broke up in a Best Buy store and I found myself bored. Morris blinked. That's wildly illegal. I prefer strategically effective. Are you in good terms with your superiors? Depends on the day, Mia said, swirling her soda like a fine wine. Officially, yes. Unofficially? Let's just say I failed to report a few things. Like you, for example. Mark's eyes widened. You haven't told them about me? I wanted to. I drafted no less than 17 reports. But every time I tried to submit one, I deleted it. I don't fully understand why. She tilted her head. There's something about this, about you, that feels important, but not in a data point on a clipboard way. How many Greys are here on Earth? 50, exactly, each assigned to a different city. I know 2 others, Kylo in Jakarta and Zeph in Nairobi. We share memes and warnings about which parts of Earth are most likely to get you chased by geese. Geese? Morris asked. Terrifying creatures, purposefully chaotic. So, spying. What's the real goal? Mia's face grew more serious. It's more than just surveillance. The Council's evaluating humanity. Not just your tech, but your empathy, your unpredictability, your capacity for unity under stress. This planet is one of 7 candidates for shared expansion. Think of Earth like an Airbnb that could become a timeshare. Mark frowned. We're being reviewed? You always were, she said softly. But now you're being watched. How often do you report in? Every 96 Earth days, we send a pulse transmission with a distilled emotional overlay and observational data. It's like writing an abstract with emojis. Wait, Morris said. You send vibes to space? Mia nodded with pride. Exactly. How long are you assigned here? Standard term is 10 Earth years. I'm 4 years in. Afterward, I either rotate to another world, join the diplomatic corps, or, if I'm deemed emotionally compromised, I get reassigned to the asteroid base on Epsilon Theta 9. Mark's expression darkened. You get punished for empathy? No, Mia said. I get redirected towards sterile observation. It's their version of a quiet demotion. Mia looked at both of them then, eyes bright but earnest. That's why I chose to talk to you, to eat pizza, to try this. Because I want to feel this place, to understand it beyond the report. If I'm going to tell them who humans are, I want to know what it feels like to be one. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full. Mark blinked. Morris let out a groan that sounded somewhere between despair and a laugh. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. 23 minutes of intense alien diagnostics and we get I've no idea. That's your expert opinion? Mia looked almost amused, stretching out her arms. Hey, I said I was clever. I never said I was omniscient. Mark ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. You can't even tell if it has a battery? Oh, I can tell you it doesn't have a battery. She tapped the device twice, its smooth metallic surface refusing to glow. It uses something ambient. Wireless power drawn from a source I can't identify. Possibly quantum induction. Maybe gravitational resonance. Possibly sunspots. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Morris raised an eyebrow. Did you just say sunspots like it was a real engineering term? Look, Mia said, holding the device like it had offended her. My species reverse-engineered a slingshot array that bends gravity to orbit moons. But this tech is like giving a caveman a microwave and expecting them to reheat lasagna without blowing up the village. Mark chuckled despite his frustration. So, you're saying the silver aliens are way ahead of you? Oh, absolutely, she replied with an unnerving amount of enthusiasm. They're building teleportation gates, and meanwhile, my people are still struggling to figure out how to make human food edible without short-circuiting our biosuits. There was a pause as they all stared at the device. Then Mia shrugged. But hey, the bright side is, it's beautiful. Like holding the future in your hands. You just have no idea which button causes interstellar travel and which one disintegrates your eyebrows. Morris leaned in. We'll label that button the nope switch. Mia grinned. That seems wise. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of uncertainty once again settling in. But even in the not knowing, there was a spark. They weren't done yet. And somehow, not knowing was the first real clue.